So, do you ever remember reading the classic Where's Wally books back in the day? Or Where's Waldo? I'll never get used to saying it that way. Well, did you know he actually has a stoner cousin? In fact, he actually has 8 of them, and they can be found on every page in this book. I actually found one of them right here. Tell you what, I'm clever me, lad, swear down. Not gonna lie, the artwork in this book is absolutely class. I'm really happy to endorse this product because genuinely it's something I would have just bought outright and played with myself. And to be honest, I actually did just buy it outright because I genuinely was happy to support it. I also know that it's something you guys would genuinely enjoy. There's so many great references to stoner, hippie, psychedelic culture, as well as homages to pieces of artwork such as Hieronymus Bosch, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the Stoned Ape Theory. It's cool to finally have the ability to talk about some sponsored content that I think is really creative. I showed the book to my mates and they were absolutely transfixed. They're all going to get a copy as soon as they can. 20 different artists came together to produce this, and you can obviously tell there's a lot of love and care that went into making it. It's fun for the whole family. And if you fancy buying it, the link's down in the description. So yeah, don't forget to check them out, and without further ado, let's start today's video. So here's a mad story for you wonderful people. This is about the time that me and I think 3 mates got chased by the police on MDMA. It was actually one of my mates' first time ever taking a Gary, or a pill. Gary's what we call them in this country. Again, it's named after Gary Ablett, this footballer. British slang is weird, you already know. So it was about, I think it was 2015, and this was in the peak of, say, my drug-taking escapades, I'd say. A few of my other mates had just got into it as well, and one of them had just received quite a large sum of money that he'd inherited from a relative of his that had died. And my other mate, he was just starting to experiment with other stuff that wasn't cannabis, and we were all up in my friend JM's car up on this hill where a load of mushrooms grow, and we were just chilling there all day, and then we were just in his car up until night time, and then one of my mates had the wise idea to suggest, should we get wired? And to which everybody said, yeah, go on then. So we all dropped back these pills, and we were initially expecting to just have a pretty interesting night, not a radically dangerous night like the one we ended up having. And our mate JM drove us to this other person's house in the town near me on this council estate, and we went there and he had a free house. He said we could come in, but we were just so fucked that we basically were like not in a great shape to be in someone's house. We were all over the place, basically flying off the walls, especially my mate who'd got the will money. He was just absolutely off his head. I think he knocked back like 3 Garys. He was absolutely munched. And then we all had the wise idea, after we'd been kicked out of the house, to walk around the estate and the town stealing people's Christmas decorations. I'm not proud of this at all. It's absolutely fucked looking back on it, and nobody should be doing this, especially not when they're wired. You're supposed to be spreading the joy and love when you're wired, and also at Christmas time, not stealing fucking people's decorations. It was our mate who knocked back 3 Garys who instigated this mission to terrorise the town. And you know, when you're on MDMA, you're just like, oh mate, that's such a sick idea, let's do it. So we all ended up getting involved in it. It was ridiculous. Every house we went past, we stole like some ornament that was outside. It was absolutely terrible. So after about an hour of doing this, we were equipped with all sorts of gear. We had a giant blow-up Santa with us that we'd lugged on our shoulders. I swear we had like a Christmas-themed little children's bicycle, loads of like tinsel, elf's ears, reefs, all the Christmas gear you can think of, really. And we were just wandering about, and then we were going to wander out of the estate and walk back to the village where we came from, back to the homeland, to safety. And just as we're about to leave, this was at like, I think 2:30 or 3 a.m. in the morning, a police car rolls past us. And when you see, I think there was 4 lads walking through an estate with loads of Christmas gear, clearly under the influence of some form of intoxicant, they fucking went past us, stopped, and then rolled back like almost 100 miles an hour to where we were, and they were like, hey, what the fuck are you doing with that? And we were like, I don't know mate, just found it. And they were like, go and fucking put that back where you found it now, or else we're going to arrest you. And we were like, alright, no worries, mate. And then after that, we were all just shitting bricks because one of our mates, I think he had a bag full of like cannabis and everything. So fortunately, he'd ended up chucking it to my mate who'd not actually taken a Gary, and he was sound. So he ended up walking off in one direction. Another guy ended up walking off in another direction. And then I did, and then my other mate did. So we all split off into like 4 ways. Thankfully, my mate who went off with all the cannabis walked off, and he was sound. So that was good for him. Because in the end, he was the most sober and had the wise idea to go onto the canal where the police weren't going to follow him. He looked pretty innocent, to be honest. But meanwhile, my mate who'd taken a Gary for the first time, this was like the most extreme thing anyone could ever experience for the first time on MDMA, and he just lost his shit. I think he just ran, which is funny because the police ended up following me instead, even though I just nonchalantly walked off. But I think I walked off in a way that looked like I was going back to someone's house, deeper into the estate. Maybe they thought I was going to go meet some drug dealer or to go back to the trap house where all the gear was. It was so ridiculous because my other mate, who had the will, he was the one with a giant inflatable Santa and everything, which is strange. And then basically, yeah, I was followed for some reason, and then I went down this alleyway, and I walked down this alleyway thinking, oh yeah, I'll be able to slip him here. And then what ends up happening, 2 lads that I knew from school were also on the run from the police, and they jump out of a bush, and they're like, fucking run, the fucking feds are coming, lad. And then I was like, oh my god, what's going on here? And then I went into like fight or flight mode, and I was like, right, I'm just going to have to run with these lads. And meanwhile, yeah, the coppers had jumped out of the car, and they were running down the alleyway, and whilst I was running, I ended up seeing my other mate, whose first time it was on Gary's, in a bush. He ran the opposite way around the estate and then linked up with them two, and they were all hidden in bushes because they were getting chased by another set of police. So it actually was 2 set of police on us. So we had to run through this alleyway, and we were absolutely like, it was like fucking getting chased by hyenas or something. I was absolutely sprinting my head off. But I had so much adrenaline, it barely felt like anything. But then we all got into this quarry which is on the other side of this estate, and unfortunately we all split up again, and lo and behold, I'm the one who ends up getting tracked down, and there's a fucking dog chasing after me. I'm like, oh my god, I'm literally going to get mauled to death from MDMA, I wonder how that'll feel. And then it basically cornered me on the banking to this canal, and it was like a like 10-foot drop down to this canal. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that, I'll probably die of hypothermia or drown. So I literally was just like, alright, I'm going to have to let this dog take me. And I thought the dog was going to jump, and he was like, if you relax, the dog won't have you, lad, just stay there. And I was like, alright, okay. So I just stood there, and to be fair, I was so wired that I didn't even really know what was going on or care. It was strange. But looking back, when I started to come down later on, I was like, oh shit, I've just been through some serious bullshit. And then the guy he started talking to me, the police officer, and he was like, are you proud of yourself for vandalising houses tonight? And I was like, what are you on about? I thought you were after me for these Christmas decorations. He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh well, we ended up nicking a Christmas decoration, but we're on our way to send it back. And he was actually after these other 2 lads who'd been actually vandalising houses on the estate, smashing them up. And he was like, oh, shout your mates and they might come out. And I had to shout my mates for him and say, oh, the gig's up, boys, you need to come out. And then I just kept going along with what he said until I was like, I'm not being funny, mate, but the people you're after I really don't know who they are, and I'm in a completely different case. And he was like, alright, fair dues, I see that you're alright, do you want to lift back home? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to walk back, mate, I'm genuinely alright. And I was still pretty munched, I didn't want him to know there was anything going on with me. He just thought I was literally running away because I was one of these vandalisers. But actually I was just on a wired mission to steal all the Christmas decorations, which was probably equally as bad, but he was more concerned about getting these people who had been smashing up windows and that, which I guess, yeah, it's a bit worse. Although my mate who did get the will threw an egg at someone's house, but I guess that's not too bad considering it didn't break any windows. Fucking hell, it makes me feel like a right reprobate reminiscing on this. Never did anything like this ever again. I was a very, very well-behaved drug consumer. So then I was like, oh shit, right, I need to link up with the boys now and see what's happening with them. And funnily enough, I walk over this bridge, and then the 2 lads who were on the run from the police were there, and they were like, did they get you? And I was like, yeah, mate, they did, but they didn't really do anything. They said that they'd be in contact. I had to give them like my details and said they'd be in contact, which Thankfully, thank the Lord, they never were, so parents didn't find out, and I think nothing ended up coming of it, because at the end of the day, he didn't even really charge me with anything. It was just like, get yourself home, get yourself tucked up in bed, lad, have a nice warm glass of milk. So I rang my mate who had the will, and he linked up with my mate who had the bag of cannabis, the sober one, and they went together to go and deliver all the Christmas decorations, because they're the ones who had them. I mean, me and my other mate literally just had like a wreath and tinsel, something. It was just minor, really nothing. It just looked like we were like out on a Christmas bender, really, but the other two looked seriously like they'd been robbing people's gaffs. And it turns out, and the set of police that was after us initially went back into the centre of the town, where they knew they were going to put all the decorations back, and they just followed them and monitored them the whole time. And my mate with the bag, he was just on the canal, and then ended up accidentally linking up with my mate who was putting the decorations back. So then he started bricking it again, like, oh fuck, I've got this bag, they better not do anything. And basically the police just gave him a load of shit, saying how they were delinquents and etc, you fucking evil bastards. And nothing ended up coming of it, really, but we were all absolutely shit up. Like, oh my god, we were almost on the verge of getting like fucking booked, mate, going in the cells for the night, for even though we'd not really like committed a major crime, but obviously it was a serious bit of disorder at 3 a.m. in the morning. And it was just such bad luck that the police were there, and like I felt so bad for my mate. It was the first time it was taking MDMA, because it literally like traumatized him. He said every single time he took it afterwards, he just couldn't stop thinking about how he almost had a heart attack from running away from the police at fucking like Usain Bolt speeds through this dark abandoned quarry. So it never really was the same for him, and we sort of fucking ruined it. Although the hours before we got caught by the police were absolutely hilarious. Just riding around in trolleys near Tesco, absolutely wired as fuck, just running around. It wasn't until the mate with the will had the wise idea to do all that, which was just, it's hilarious looking back. We're so lucky that nothing ended up happening, and especially lucky that my mate was wise enough to give the full duffel bag. It's like a full duffel bag full, like, not full of cannabis, but there was quite a lot in there. Definitely enough to raise suspicion, and he luckily offered to carry it when we were at that guy's house before we got kicked out. And another thing, JM, whose car we were in the whole time, he decided to just go home after we got kicked out of the gaff, but we just didn't. We just couldn't put the night to end, especially because we were still rolling, and we should have just gone home and gone and had a biff in the fucking bowling green that we usually did. That's what we ended up doing. We all linked up. My sober mate, he lived in the actual town. He was just like, right lads, I'm gonna go to bed and think about what I've done. And me and my mate who'd taken it for the first time, and my mate with the will, we all walked back, it was not like a massive walk. It's like a 30 to 40 minute walk from where we were, but we really needed it. In fact, no, I actually ended up walking. When I got caught by the police, I was like, oh, I'm literally just gonna walk. I'm just gonna walk back home and get to bed, because this is fucking, I've got a bit of shell shock from this, me lad. But halfway through the walk, I got a ring off my mate, who just retrieved the bag from my sober mate, and them two rang me and they said, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the village and have a few biffs if you fancy it. And I was like, alright, go on then, I'll walk back to meet you. And obviously I was in the grips of the MDMA, so I didn't really give a shit. I was like, I'll happily walk 1,000 miles. So I went back and met them, and then we walked straight back to the village, and we just chilled out in this bowling green all night and smoking doobies. And then we were both of us, like, me and my mate had taken the Gary for the first time, were like just still absolutely goners. In fact, we were all goners. So our mate with the will was like, oh, you can just stop at mine, even though his mum and dad were in, but they just didn't they were all in bed. So we all just went into his room, and me and my other mate got in the bunk bed, while the guy whose house it was just conked out in the bed below us. And to be fair, I was up all night. I just couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. I was like, wow, this is possibly one of the weirdest things that's happened to me yet. Oh Jesus, this was 7 years ago. I'm getting old, me now, mate. And after that, I never did anything stupid like that again. I just always enjoyed it in people's houses. Didn't do anything risky like that. You think you're invincible until the piggies roll around the corner and they start chasing you around this quarry, thinking you're gonna get mauled by the sniffer dogs. Never did anything that stupid again. Should just put my foot down and said, nah, we're not doing this. But when you're young, you just do crazy stuff, don't you? And we were all in our adolescence. You just sort of fucking rebelling against the world, aren't you, in a way? I don't mean any offence to anyone whose Christmas decorations we ended up stealing. I mean, they all got them back in the end, which was... So everybody won in the end. We learnt a valuable lesson, and the people whose Christmas decorations went missing got them back. So they got to have a lovely time with their family at Christmas. I hope you enjoyed this little story. It's probably one of my maddest ones. There's even worse ones, to be fair. I'll probably talk about them in the future. Not in terms of what we did was worse, but in terms of like the trauma from the experience, because there wasn't much trauma from this. It was just the fact that, oh right, we were almost on the verge of some major shit happening. But yeah, this was a little funny one, and appropriate for the Christmas time. Hope my American viewers are gearing up for Thanksgiving, whatever the fuck you do with that. I have no idea, but apparently there's a turkey involved. So yeah, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.